Welcome, everyone, to Watch Challenge. On each episode, we challenge ourselves to find and watch a film of a particular type, and then report back the results to each other and you fine listeners. My name is Mike Wendt.
And I'm Aaron Spears. This episode's challenge was Blaxploitation. Mike, this was your pick, so my first thought throwing it to you was like, when did you first experience or hear about and see your first Blaxploitation movie? Like, what kicked that off for you?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I've been kind of racking my brain the last couple days in anticipation of recording. I mean, likely one of the first that I ever heard of, or maybe even, by watching South Park as a young kid, just hearing Isaac Hayes' voice. And
Oh, yeah.
then, during the time, like, I think my dad was just like, oh, that's, he did the music for Shaft. And so while I was still kind of young, I think we got a Shaft from that library.
Okay.
And so that was probably my first exposure to Blaxploitation. And then
Wait, was
around
it like as a father-son watch then with Shaft?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Well, I think then not too long after was the release of Jackie Brown.
Yeah.
So it was, I mean, and I guess that is almost like a homage to Blaxploitation films.
For sure.
But yeah, it's one of those things where I probably didn't have a ton of access to them as a youngster, but over the years have tried to catch up with some of the classics, and
Mhm.
and certainly I think right now actually on HBO Max's like Turner Classic Movie section, there's quite a few of them on there. A lot of like Superfly and a lot of those
Yeah.
type of films. Now, how about you? Like, did you have a lot of exposure when you were younger?
Oh, not really when I was younger. For me, it was Jackie Brown, I think. Or I mean, I'm sure it was because I was swept up in Pulp Fiction mania when
Right,
that hit
right.
theaters, and I could not wait for his follow up. And then I still think to this day that's his only adapted screenplay. I think he's done. Quentin Tarantino's only done his original screenplays, but that was adapted
Right.
from an Elmore Leonard book, Rum Punch, I believe. It's been a while since I looked that one up. And I couldn't wait. And I remember seeing Jackie Brown in theaters. I was also currently in film school, majored in film theory and history. So Jackie Brown came out, and of course, being the obsessive fan that I am with certain directors and certain films, I still had like a Movie Maker magazine subscription or Premiere or one of those. And when you get Tarantino talking, same as a Martin Scorsese or a Paul Thomas, like the film geek directors that I really gravitate towards.
Yeah.
He was saying like, you got to see this movie. I'm like, okay, I'm in. And I think it was, no, it was Superfly I had seen already. I just didn't realize, oh, that's this Blaxploitation genre.
Sure.
Also, because in the 90s, when, late 90s, when we're watching this, the internet wasn't the internet
Right.
like we have now. Like IMDb, I'm not even sure if that was around or I knew of it then. I had the film encyclopedia that Ephraim Katz used to put out. So I would like, oh, it's Blaxploitation. Let me look it up in the book, physical IMDb. And then, I just dove in head first, like, oh my God. Cause I fell in love with Pam Grier through Jackie Brown. I was like, she's in Blaxploitation. Sign me up.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was my inroad there. But then also it was a lot of VHS because it was the late 90s. Some early DVD, but I didn't have a DVD player. But yeah, a lot of VHS Blaxploitation rentals then.
Yeah, and I remember in 2000 when the Shaft remake with Samuel L. Jackson came out.
Yeah.
That kind of also sparked my interest into certain things. And I guess a cool aside is a few years ago I got to work on one of the movies that shot in town, and it was a Lifetime movie about Michelle Knight, the three girls who were in the basement. And while some of that film was really hard to work on just because
that's intense.
it was in the winter, the coolest thing was that Pam Grier played one of the nurses.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, so she was there for a couple days, couldn't have been nicer, and was really the highlight, I think, for everybody who worked on that, because other than that, it was just because it was so cold in December shooting this, because they wanted to have it done in time for the anniversary, which was in May.
Oh, sure.
So it was one of those things where we had to shoot like 10, 11 pages a day of dialogue.
Good
But
God.
yeah, but having Pam Grier was just like, oh, like that was like, up to then, like I got to work with like a couple of cool celebrities, but like
Yeah.
I think to a lot of us, we were just like, oh, that was one of the coolest. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's also good to hear that, what some of your idols, your favorites, aren't jerks.
Yeah,
I love hearing that as well.
absolutely. So as we were kind of talking before,
Yeah,
we started, I mean, there are so many like classic films in this genre, or just so many to choose from.
for sure.
I mean, were there any that almost made your watch list? Because I mean, I have kind of a laundry list of of things.
Yeah, I was writing down some honorable mentions I wanted to do some quick shout outs for, and I limited it to, I'm going to say two and a half,
Okay,
for a
yeah,
reason I'll get into in a second. But then I was like, my next note was like, we're going to have to revisit this with Blaxploitation Part 2 at some
yeah,
point. It's just one of those very rich genres, and all that. But yeah, I did whittle it down. I had my chosen one, and like I said, I got like a two and a half ish for my shout outs. But yeah, it's a lengthy one. And before we do an honorable mentions, I wanted to say too, like in doing some research over the years, like looking into this particular genre, there is a legitimate critical complaint that this reinforces negative cultural stereotypes. So there
sure,
are, very smarter film critics and film historians out there, beyond my capabilities, that have great arguments for that. And I think there's a valid criticism there. I prefer the angle of there's a lot of firsts and there's a lot of inroads for people that were marginalized, for artists that just didn't get funding for movies or get acting opportunities. Now they had some. Granted, it's within an exploitation genre, but I guess I'm a glasses half full kind of kind of film history geek in this particular genre case.
right,
That said, you want some honorable mentions thrown out?
yeah, absolutely,
Oh, let me do my half one first, because so when we did our Ozploitation one about Australian exploitation, we mentioned Not Quite Hollywood, the documentary all about that genre.
yeah,
So my half shout out is just to say, I think it's still up on YouTube. It's maybe 50, 60 minutes long. It's called Badass, lots of S's,
yeah,
Cinema. It's a documentary about the genre, and just it's one of those, watch it with pen and paper because you're going to get a lot of recommendations. So good inroad for the genre there. But so one of the other ones I wanted to do as an honorable mention is from 1972. It's called Across 110th Street, directed by Barry Shear, and co-stars Anthony Quinn and Yaphet Kotto as cops that are investigating a robbery where $300,000 is stolen from the Italian mob. Some
okay,
cops were killed, a mafioso's killed, and then you get these two New York City cops who are trying to break the case. So it's that like mismatched cops who are like not like good cop, bad cop, just like they have different ways of working. Obviously it's Anthony Quinn, Yaphet Kotto, so like they have to work together because they want to solve this, but for I don't say like exactly different reasons, but it's one of those like mismatched buddy movies. So like it's their dynamic trying to work together, but also trying to solve this case where there's just the fallout is a shitload of street violence. It's very much, I think, is comparable to the French Connection for like the gritty like street crime
yes.
kind of version of it. So yeah, that's a highlight. Also, very famous song, Cross 110th Street, is used in the movie. That's where it comes from, and is used in Jackie Brown. Starts it and ends it. So
All comes back to
it
Quentin.
all comes back. I know. You want to do a shout out? We'll just
Yeah,
alternate.
I there are several that I mean that I've seen, but I would say if, for any of our listeners who want to kind of dabble in the genre, Dolomite I think is one really that you should watch. And even the I would even suggest that the Eddie Murphy Dolomite Is My Name that
Oh, it's
came
so
out a
good.
couple years ago, which
Yeah,
is just kind of like I don't. It's just such a joyous movie, about
yeah.
the making of movies and everything. And I do remember some of the other things that for a little while, I don't know how this happened, but we ended up having a deal where we had all of the movie channels for like 3 months or something like that,
Yeah.
and for me, as an impressionable movie lover, we had what was at the time, and I don't know if it's still around, but it was called Black Stars.
Oh,
So
one.
they showed like a lot of basically all of like the big hits, I would say, of the
Sure.
blaxploitation genre. So Blackula is another one that I would say is one of those ones that can really get you into it.
Oh yeah.
Kind of understand that they were, some of these movies were really kind of pushing the envelope and
Oh yeah.
trying to erase some of those stereotypes by kind of spoofing some of the cultural norms of the time.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
mean, I really highly suggest those, to kind of whet your appetite if you're never really, or if you haven't really seen a lot of those
Yeah.
blaxploitation films.
I think it also speaks to the multiple different genres you can have within this one blaxploitation banner, because that's obviously horror, not
Yeah.
horror the way we picture it now, but it's still vampire and blood and all that. But then also the seduction aspect of a vampire. I actually I wrote that one down after doing our last one when I picked for female directed horror. I did the Velvet Vampire. I wrote down, I was
Oh
like,
yeah.
not pick Blackula. You've already covered vampires. But no, that's a good, yeah, absolutely. The other honorable mention I had is so we were covering some of the big broad hits, right? And I didn't want to do my main pick as like something super obscure,
Yeah.
but I wanted to do a quick honorable mention of one I just watched in the last calendar year that is a bit more obscure, but I think I watched it. Let me check my. Yeah, I watched it. It was just streaming on YouTube, and it's quite bloody. It's not a great quality, but it's called Brotherhood of Death
Brotherhood of
from 1976, directed by Bill Berry. My quick pitch for this one is it's three black men who are all friends. They go to Vietnam, and there's some fairly, I'm going to be nice and say, inventive use of shooting around your local forests or out in the woods as a stand-in for Vietnam. There's some archival footage, that just mixed in. I'm like, eh. But anyway, they learn guerrilla warfare in Vietnam. They return home to a racist as shit America, and you get to watch them just murder the Klan. And I was like, it's the definition of exploitation, but also, given I don't know, the current state of America, there's a vicarious thrill to watching the Klan just get, knocked off.
Oh, exactly. Oh,
And
I'm adding that to my watch list right now.
it's very rough around the edges, so beware of that. But like the point, like there's a kind of a political punch to it that I was like, I am on board with this. Also, fantastic funk disco song. I think it's called "Get Off Your High Horse" that is done during the credits, and I was like, man, I'm adding that to my playlist. That is a that is a great one. But
So what film did you end up picking?
oh, so I did. I went with the classic because I can't not. My entry point, as I mentioned, was very much Pam Grier centric. So if you haven't seen it, you gotta watch Coffee.
Yes.
1973, Jack Hill. It's Pam Grier is a nurse, and her younger sister gets involved in drugs, gets hooked on drugs, and she gets injured by contaminated heroin. She's in the hospital. She's clearly like has some neurological damage. She may never recover, and she's like, God damn it! And she goes out on a mission. She's out for blood. She wants vengeance and becomes a vigilante, killing drug dealers, pimps, mobsters. She kind of works her way up the chain of how drugs are distributed, in her neighborhood. But because she's Pam Grier and she's hot as hell, she just seduces all these men because it's all men. And man, as soon as you enter a little bit of the idea of sex into all of the men around her, they just immediately drop their guard like, hell yeah. And then she gets to off anybody she wants fairly easily.
My name's Carter. I know what you want to, and you're gonna get it. This is the end of your rotten life, you dope pusher.
Let me see you crawl over here, you black trash.
You want me to crawl?
What are you doing? Put that down.
You want to spit on me and make me crawl?
Just tell me. Did this man send you to kill me?
No, he didn't know nothing.
Take her out and kill her.
I think of all the fun I could have had with a good-looking stud like you.
You really mean that?
And it hits a lot of buttons too. Like it's first African American female action star in cinema history. So that's very, very important. At the time in '73 as well, you've got the women's movement, you've got the Black Power movement, and isn't like really overtly addressed as like, it's not really like an overtly political movie, but that's all there in the background as you're
Yeah.
watching. The dynamic is all there. You've got action. I mean, it's everything you want in an exploitation movie. Yes, there's nudity. There's action. At one point, she hides razor blades in a weave she's wearing, and then another woman goes to like rip it, grab her grab her by the hair and gets her hands all cut up. It's yeah, like I said, as soon as sex is offered, the men are just like, duh, and she can just take them right out. And even if you're not on board for some of the violence, the opening scene of it, so this is not a spoiler at all, she's seducing this guy and then just blows his head off with a shotgun. And as a kid watching that on VHS, I was just like, you could do that? And then, yeah, she just, she lays waste and works her way, like I said, up. And also there's some twists and turns as she reveals like some hard truths about the friends and folks in her circle that she maybe didn't know at all. You get a very young Sid Haig in there as one of the bad guys too. God, that guy's always creepy. And
Yes.
but yeah, no, that's have you seen Coffee?
I'll be honest, like I've seen bits and pieces. I've just never seen it in one sitting. So I almost feel embarrassed to admit that, but I tell the truth. I want,
Oh, that's right.
I want to be fully transparent.
And I watched some like that one and so Coffee and then Foxy Brown, she does those pretty close together. Those plots have kind of intermingled in my brain over the years. And so rewatching Coffee a couple of years ago, I was waiting for certain scenes and I was like, oh, that scene never. Oh, wrong movie. Because she worked with Jack Hill a couple times, including both of those movies. She did one of her, what did she call them? Booty in the Jungle movies with him. The Big Bird Cage or the Dollhouse or one of those that were, in vogue there for a minute. But
I love the titles.
yeah, oh my God, yeah. Oh, and yeah, and it's another one. I don't think Roger Corman was still there at this point in time, but it's another American International Pictures movie, another AIP.
Yes.
Kings and queens of the exploitation vibe there. But so apparently, it was Jack Hill or the producer for Coffee had like a quote unquote handshake deal for Cleopatra Jones, which would end up being Tamara Dobson's film, which comes out a little bit later. And then that fell through. It went to some other producers and then a different director. And so at AIP, they're like, fuck, hurry up. We got to make a movie. And Coffee's what they hurry up and made. And it came out first and was this huge, huge hit and put Pam Grier on the map as like, okay, she's a star. We made this for like no money, like
face.
Yeah. Half a million or so and ended up making several million. So that became a thing. And then it ended up looking like Cleopatra Jones was a copy or, in that same vein. And then you get, Janine Bell and TNT Jackson eventually. And I mean, it opened up the door. And again, there's issues with exploitation films and Blaxploitation in particular, but that's employing a lot of actors and a lot of talent doing some kick-ass movies. So that's again, I'm back on the glasses half full kind of.
No, that's amazing.
So I got to ask before you do your reveal.
Sure.
Did you pick another guy who is traumatized in his youth and then goes to a mental hospital and then ends up killing his parents?
No, I did not.
Okay.
I actually, maybe this is the closest that we've ever come to a slight overlap.
Ooh,
but
okay.
I went with. So, I was looking through all the lists, and of course, I mean, I was considering Coffee. I was considering just some of the other ones that are in that time range.
Yeah.
But when I was doing like just kind of a one night, just a couple days ago, when I was doing an Amazon Prime scroll, I came across a movie from the 90s, that I never saw before, but I do remember vividly the ads on TV. But it was Original Gangstas is what I ended up going with, and it is directed by Larry Cohen. He's probably, I mean, he did a lot of like different stuff, but I know he's known for the stuff in the 80s. But he also started near the start of his career. He directed several Blaxploitation films with Fred Williamson. So this is a film that stars Pam Grier, Fred Williamson, and Jim freaking Brown.
Wow.
So this was and basically the plot, and this is the IMDb plot, but when a gang shoots his father, Bookman, played by Fred Williamson, returns to his hometown, rounds up some of his own people, and begins an all-out war to restore the neighborhood to its rightful sense of justice.
You're looking at a factory town that somehow became a gang town. The headquarters to a gang called the Rebels. All that money? For basketball?
Stand back for the hustle, I'm marked.
Why, dear Lord, did you snatch this dear boy away from his precious mother?
Is that good for business? For a $300 hustle?
We're not behind you on this.
He was going to be a big star. He had a plan, just like you.
You should have come back once in a while, Johnny, because all you all left.
It's up to you to decide whether or not your neighborhood is worth fighting for.
If they fight one of us, they've got to fight all of us.
You want something, brother?
This is my son, man. And where does that leave you, Spyro? You're dead man.
They're getting ready to retaliate.
Why don't you come and help us?
We can't trust him.
I ain't got no love for anyone. I'm a businessman, my brothers and sisters.
Let's see if we can't stop this thing.
You gonna negotiate with these punks?
If the old man keeps his mouth shut, we'll call it done.
You sell us out to him?
Well, it looked like the Reverend did his job, huh?
Won't you just run home and pray?
Well, I guess we better do ours.
Fred Williamson.
Get out of my face, man.
Jim Brown.
Let me give you a hand.
And Pam Grier.
All right, I owe you one, okay?
Oh, I heard that before.
You will get hurt. If I don't hurt you, my friends will. The original Rebels.
I'm back home, Blood, and I'm working with him.
Well, there goes the neighborhood.
When I saw who was in this, I was like pretty excited.
Yeah.
And just actually seeing all three of those stars who were huge in the Blaxploitation movement in the 70s interact together was great. I think ultimately, for me, the movie was kind of in the middle. You know, it was kind of maybe a 2.5, 3 stars for me. But there are some pretty entertaining, just a lot of wordplay. There's a pretty good fight scene towards the end that includes a lot of explosions. But I'm sure the intent for this was made to be an homage to all of those Blaxploitation films of the era where they were coming up. There's several scenes in it that I think they almost make it too complicated. Like there's a lot of drama, there's a lot of exposition, there's like elongated scenes of funerals and everything where I feel like maybe if it was a little tighter and just a lot of Fred Williamson, Pam Grier kicking ass, it might have been a lot more fun. But I didn't mind watching it. I thought it was pretty good. It's one of those ones that you wish like you could go and recut it or something, or just add more action to it. But one of the interesting things is that movie came out. It was like Orion Pictures had, they had a huge run in the 80s, and then they almost, I think, fell in the toilet in the early 90s. So like this was one of the first movies released when they relaunched, and I think they went bankrupt again, and now they've relaunched again in the late or the early 2020s here. So it's that's one of those things, like when I was growing up, when I saw Orion, like because I think RoboCop immediately when I see that.
Yeah, no, I have a very specific memories of like that scrolls across the screen. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, but it's like usually when you see that logo, I was like, oh, you're in for a pretty good time. Even if it's not always the best movie.
Right.
So
they did a certain type of movie and they did it pretty well.
Yeah. But I don't know. It's one of those things like I just wish Original Gangsters was a little bit better, like a little more trashier, maybe.
Well, yeah, because it's okay. I'll be honest. So I've never seen it.
Yeah,
it was one of those like I've meant to, and until you said, I was like, oh, I forgot. I've meant to see that. Even the video store I was working at, I remember I could picture the video box and where it was sitting, and I was like, I got to get to that one, and then never did.
Yeah,
but also has I was just looking at the cast too. Like it's also got Shaft in it, Richard Roundtree, and it's got Ron O'Neal, fucking Superfly.
Yes,
and Larry Cohen knows how to make trash in the best sense of that word.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I would have had some pretty high expectations to it. Also, Robert Forster. So he's in.
Oh yeah, yeah. He plays one of the local law enforcement.
Okay.
So it's like basically it's the young gangs versus the old gang, and the young gang tends to or they injure or murder a lot of the family members of the old gang. So that's what kind of sparks everything. But I would say it's still worth a watch just to see those actors all on screen.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just wish it was a little more
just
fun,
a touch more
tongue in cheek, maybe a little more.
Okay. Yeah, just because looking at the dates, Robert Forster and Pam Grier, like they're much more co-stars. From what you're describing, I think they're much more co-stars than Jackie Brown a year later.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I didn't realize they were even crossed paths before that. So that's kind of
cool. They barely have any scenes together from what I remember. It's like very brief.
Well, we'll always have Jackie Brown for that.
So right. Exactly. Maybe Tarantino saw Original Gangsters and was like, you know what? I'm going to do that better.
That's a good question. I know he's obviously a big Blaxploitation fan, so he was like, oh my God, I'm making a movie with Pam Grier. Fuck yeah. I don't remember hearing what his what compelled him, other than Robert Forster's got some great 70s stuff. So.
Sure.
But yeah, I wonder if oh God, do you think, because I know he's one of those directors too, Tarantino, that'll screen movies for the cast. Did they screen Original Gangsters and like, you got two of the stars here, I'd want to quiz them on like what's going on here.
You see this movie, just do it different.
Oh, that's awesome. But sweet. Yeah, no, I'm definitely have to cue that one up because I've always meant to, and there's no reason not to now. It's a push of a button away. I don't even have to go rent it at a store anymore. Although I wish I had to. That'd be fun.
And I will reverse the travesty of not seeing Coffee yet. So so what do we got on tap for next episode?
All right, that is my pick. What do I got my notes here? Oh, right. So I was thinking one of the genres, I mean, we're very, very early on in the episodes here, but one of the genres we haven't really hit on was nothing documentary yet.
Ah, okay.
And so it's like I fell into, and I want to get back to, because my queue or my watch list on Letterboxd has got a lot of these. I watched a lot of concert films.
Yeah.
Like summer 2020 when fucking nothing was going on, no vaccine in sight. Everybody was just, kind of sheltering in place and playing it cool. Well, not necessarily playing it cool, but you know what I mean? So I was watching some concert films because I was like, I can't go to concerts right now.
Right.
And man, some of those just like really hit me. And I dug into that genre and I was like, there's a ton of films in this genre. So, like a documentarian filming like a concert for, it could be a whole band. I think Woodstock's probably the most famous. That's a festival. Concert doc is fine too. But I was looking at my watch list and I was like, man, I did not go back and finish it. I got like 30 more of these to get through. And one of the things I needed, and I don't know if I'm going to pick this one or not, probably won't just because I'm going to mention it now, but I'm a huge Spike Lee fan. And he did a David Byrne Talking Heads documentary. And it's unfair. I don't like the Talking Heads, but I also don't know their music that well. I know a few of the hits and I'm like, not my genre. But I adore Spike Lee, so I was like, I kind of need a kick in the ass to go watch that.
I will say on a personal, or I always make my, and I'm sure you do the same, but like you always make your top 10 lists of the year.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And in 2020, I believe, I'm pretty sure it like feels like 5 years ago, but I picked Spike Lee's doc about.
Was it American Utopia?
Yes, American Utopia. Yeah. I picked that as my number one of the year.
Because it was,
oh my God. It was just one of those movies that I needed at the time. Like, because I am full disclosure, I really love a lot of the Talking Heads music. Okay. I don't really like a lot of his newer stuff. I like the older stuff. But this is just the way how it was done. It is a concert film, at the end of the day. But I think it was just the movie that I needed, definitely in a down year, for sure.
Oh, for sure. All right, so I won't be picking that one. We'll use it as an example, but I will watch it, I promise.
Yes.
So, concert films for our next watch challenge. So
awesome.
Looking forward to seeing what you pick on that one, Mike.
Absolutely.
All right, we will talk soon.
Have a good one.